A warm welcome to you. Thanks for joining us on this week's episode of the program Around Africa. My name is BROWNSON, UNWANA, your host. And on the program today, we'll be taking you to Libya. We'll be exploring Libya and, of course, looking at life after the death of Muammar Gaddafi. Joining me on the program today is Professor Charles Dokubo. He's the head of Defense and Strategy Studies, Nigerian Institute of International Affairs. Good to have you, sir.
Well, thanks for having me.
All right, today on the program, we are heading straight to Libya. And after the death of Gaddafi, there have been a lot of reactions. It seems like the whole struggle and the fight they've fought for has not really yielded any fruit. But first, let's x-ray the reign of Gaddafi. How would you describe his reign?
Gaddafi has ruled that country for a very long time after he took over from the king at that time. As a colonel in the military, he took over powers and reigns for powers, and he's been there for a long time, definitely. But also in terms of social provisioning for a country and for citizens, I think no leader has done that more than him in any African country. In as much as, he was authoritarian or dictatorial, and it was non-democratic, he was able to feel the pulse of the people. And at times, or most times, he's been able to deliver to them what they really needed.
And of course, one of the things he was being known for was the fact that he declared free education to all, both male and female, free medical care, and then there were a lot of things going on smoothly. And where did you think the problem started? Where did the Libyans, or where did the whole thing start from?
Nature. You can provide everything for me, but also I want to be part of that decision-making process that allows me to be what I am in a country. So if you give me 10 times food 10 times a day and all that, yes, give me shelter, that's okay. But be that as it may, I also want to be part of the process in where laws are made that I should obey. That is the crux of it.
But a country that had everything going for them, but should that be important to them?
Of course, human nature. I don't know how you think. Wherever you are, even in America, any country in which you belong to, the decisions are made away from you. You don't participate in voting. You don't nominate or elect somebody to represent you. And definitely, that's a big problem for most human beings I know.
All right, looking at Libya and now coming back to their government settings, a lot of people also criticize the fact that Gaddafi was ruling, his family were involved in everything. Don't forget, his son right now is imprisoned. He was the head.
Like most African leaders. Gaddafi is not an exemption. Most African leaders, also some of them want their sons to even take over from them. There are people who wanted their daughters to be governors in the particular state that they belong to. So it's not Gaddafi, it's an African problem. Why is it that African leaders cannot know when to retire and when to leave things to other people to manage? Why is it that African leaders believe that if they are not there, things will not be done the way that it should be? These are questions that African leaders should face. It's not only for Gaddafi. Whatever Gaddafi has done, other people have already replicated it in various countries in the world.
Now, don't you think that that could be a result of the love for his country?
Love for his country, that that his family should be so rich that the others will be so poor. It's not about, the division is no longer about the rich and the poor. It's about those who are getting rich every day and those who are even getting poor, or poorer every day. So definitely, it's not about the fact is that nobody if a particular set of people are ruling the country, that does not give them the right to enrich themselves in such a way that as if the country belongs to them. It belongs to all the citizenry in the country. But as for them to think that because their father is the head of state, they have this, they will lead this, they will get that. There is no situation in which people will accept it. They might accept it for some time, but eventually, when they are pushed to the wall, they'll fight back.
Now, looking at the economy, would you say, talking about the rich and the poor now, would you say Gaddafi really mismanaged the country's economy? Because most people want to say, at a point, everybody were very comfortable. They live in very good houses, they attend good school, good medical care, and all of that.
They are comfortable, but was there accountability? Was there transparency in the way money was spent? Like I mentioned the first time, you can have all that it takes, but people also want to be part of that process. But the mistake the West did in terms of Libya was that they thought that Libya wanted democracy. The West has failed to understand the Middle Eastern countries. Most of them, that's the way they've been ruled for ages. They've not tasted democracy. Just going back to Egypt, for 400 years, Egyptians have not known what they call democracy. And then you want to impose democracy on them? Democracy also, even for those other African countries that are emerging from post-military rule and all that, you can also see that democracy does not always resolve conflict. Democracy can also exacerbate conflict because it determines who gets what, when, and how. And since that context is there, it won't go on smoothly. The West have accepted it, that either I lose, next time I'll come back. But in most African countries, once you are out, sometimes you'll be out forever, because those who make the rule will continue to make the rule to favor themselves. So that's what was happening in Libya. And the West mistook it for me that they wanted democracy. No, they wanted change. But the nature of change that they wanted, they didn't know even themselves. The only thing that unified all the opposition in Egypt is that in Libya was that they wanted Gaddafi out. And after that, nothing else. We want him out. But what are the frameworks for us to develop and then rule the country after his absence? There was nothing like that there. That's the problem.
Now, a very big problem. And I took time out to look at how he was killed. And somehow I got a little emotional about it, looking at someone that led them for years, and the way he was being disgraced out of the office, the way he was murdered by people that he thought or cared or thinks he cared about.
Leaders sometimes think that they care for people. Sometimes, you know, even in some countries in Africa, if a leader performs a particular service for you, he thinks that he's taking care of the country. Settling individuals and all that, it is different from dealing with the social provisioning of the country. So Gaddafi might think that, you know, because he has done this, that people will like him, people love him, people will die for him. It doesn't follow that way. Human nature is such that they will also have to be part of it. They want to. Why wouldn't they rule? Have they been born not to rule at all? Or is it that Gaddafi was born to rule the country forever? These are issues that you have to address. Forget about the social provision. Yes, citizens need social provision, but in terms of rulership, they also want to be part of that class that will rule the country.
Now, 3 years have come and gone, and it looks like peace is still yet to return to Libya. Now, is Gaddafi's shoe too big to be? Is the shoe too big for another leg to contain it?
The fact is that the West miscalculated everything in Libya, because they thought that the regime change will lead to a stabilization and then democratic development. They've seen that, you know, it's not true. America cannot change the world into its own image and likeness. There are countries that have their own pattern of development. You cannot impose it from anywhere to change things. What has happened in Libya shows that they've misfired, and that's why they are so reluctant to engage to intervene in Syria and other places, because you don't know the outcome of the change you want to take place. You don't know if it's going to come back to fight you. See how Libya has been unstable for all this time. The Western interest is no longer protected. You have private oil interests going there, but with a heavy risk. So Libya has not been stabilized. Regime change has not worked. There are factions that are fighting against themselves. So I think if the West will sit back and look, they will say that if had we known, we wouldn't have intervened.
Let's come to a very big one. Now, look at the factions that are fighting against themselves are the same factions that came together to fight against Gaddafi. At this point, what would you say they are fighting for? Selfish interest or what?
Like I told you, the only thing they were in concert with was that Gaddafi should go. And after that, there was nothing else. There was nothing else. That's it. We want Gaddafi to go. But after Gaddafi, what sort of political development should we adopt? Is there a sort of a post-conflict peace-building process that to set up new institutions and organizations that will rule the country? In that case, they were not even prepared for it. They don't know which way to go.
That's surprising. And also looking at the fact that after the whole battle happened, now there were congratulatory messages from every quarters of the world, from the United States of America, from UN bodies, and of course from this particular set of countries that I feel for them it was taken out of Gaddafi meant so much to them, the NATO body or countries you want to say. What's their interest in all of that?
The fact is that Gaddafi was the first leader in Africa to nationalize oil assets owned by foreigners. And then since he blazed that trail, other countries have followed up. So for the Americans, they've not forgiven him. Once in a while, they accuse him of either terrorist attack and all that, the bombing of the aircraft and all that landed in Scotland and all that. They accuse him of everything. They accuse him, and then, you know, they've not forgiven him. For them, Gaddafi has taken them back. And looking at oil, Gaddafi, I think Libya had the largest reserve of oil in the world. So they know what they wanted there. But now, with the emergence of new factions that are even worse than Gaddafi, I think they realize that they've not done the right thing, or they've not worked out what they wanted for Libya before they intervene.
And that's a very big worry for us at this point. To go for a very quick break. When we come back from the break, we'll be looking at the allegation of the fear of Arab Spring from the international community. Stay with us.
Our people dying for, you know, for freedom, only for freedom, nothing else. So I decided to join to their truth, you know, and defending our people, our homes, our streets, you know, from the devil of Gaddafi. We are checking almost every car. We're checking it from, like you see there, from the hunchback, and from the. We also sometimes do the personal check for Thuraya, for example, so they can communicate with each other. Also for weapons.
We went up to the building, the children care. I think it's 5 or 6 floors. We went to the roof to put on the independence flag. So we set the flag, and we're trying to contact with the freedom fighters downstairs. We're saying hello. We are freedom fighters like you are. They're starting saying, God is the greatest. God is the greatest. And we repeat back. After then, some people trying to shoot us.
Some rebels surround the hospital before entrance before entrance to us, yeah, just and after about 1 day, 24 hours from surrounding, there is some rebels can expel the hospital and can enter the hospital here, and some fighting happened here.
Every day and every night and every morning in fight. No, not stop. Gaddafi, we need killing all people here. Because Gaddafi have a good place in the block, all block. You understand me? Good place. Gaddafi, because he needed killing all people.
Welcome back. You're still watching Around Africa, and of course on the program today we've been looking at Libya, the life after the death of Gaddafi. So let's quickly look at now, just like what we have in Egypt, where there have been this fear of the Muslim Brotherhood and the Arab Spring. Now, is the West generally afraid of the Arab Spring?
In fact, the West also miscalculated in the sense like most of us, we just sat down and these things started happening. We had different we opted out different reasons why it was taking place like that, but none of us knew exactly what it wanted. Egypt was in free fall. The economy was bad. And then they have dictatorial rules and all that. But be that as it may, do they want democracy? These are people that have not known democracy for 400 years. How can you bring them to come and manage a system that is totally alien to them? And that's why it is. The Islamic Brotherhood, they told lies, to the to the Egyptian populace. They said they are not interested in majority rule. They said they are going to be a sort of all-embracing government for Egypt. And eventually, on all those things they said, in fact, they were avaricious. There was nothing that they fulfilled. And that for us, or for most people, it was the economy that was the most important thing. How will the economy be structured in such a way that that is going to benefit the Egyptians? They lost sight of it. They are talking about Islamization. These were not things that were relevant to the development of Egypt. Egypt has been a secular state for a very long time. You can have majority of them who are Muslims, but they are also secular Muslims. Not that they wanted a fundamentalist Islamic state.
But was there any trace of Arab Spring in Libya?
In Libya, of course, Libya was part of the Arab Spring. But the Arab Spring is not an omnibus concept. It is applicable differently to various countries. Most countries have their problems. Tunisia, Algeria, they have their problems. It's not a common denominator that affected all of them. Elections were carried out in some places. They are working out. It's working out well, or it's trying to work out well. In other places, it has failed, and woefully so. So you can see that it means different things to different people, and that's why the West got it wrong. They thought that this uprising was about democratization and expansion of the democratic space. That's what they thought. But they now realize it is not. These are factions who, for various reasons known to themselves, want to occupy the role of state management, and that you cannot deal with them because they take different shapes and form. That's what is happening in most of this country. When the Egyptian military intervened and after the Islamic Brotherhood, the United States did not even tell you about it was a coup. They didn't say that. Eventually, the general has transmuted himself to be a president. They are not going to solve. Sometimes the West also need what we call strong men in areas that they have their own vital interests.
Now, are you saying African countries somehow should be left to have their own style of rule rather than democracy?
Imposing rule from anywhere would not solve Africa's problem. Africa has been ruled and managed from afar for a very long time. Africans will, by their own self, find out what is suitable for them. You don't have to impose rules for Africa. Africans will look for a way to manage themselves. It could be faulty democracy, but with time they will improve. But there are some that have, in fact, if an Arab leader once said, democracy means different things to different people. It is not about one man, one vote system. For others, democracy is the government of the people by the best of the people for the people. So it is not. It doesn't mean everything to everybody. So allow them. In fact, democracy is one long road with exit and entrances. People pick what they want from the democratic credentials. Some of them will have open economic freedom, new Keynesian economics, non-liberal economic system. They will have it open economic so that people can come in. Other countries, you can take your profit, come and invest in that country. They can do all those things.
Do you think Libya could have done that? Probably that would have helped.
But the fact is that those who wanted to rule the country or those who wanted to manage things are from various areas. They are not interested in what comes of Libya. They want to control the oil resources of that country. And even in conflicts, they are awarding contracts to foreigners to come and explore oil. So you can just see how it is. It's not easy for us to fashion a thing like America. As I said, America cannot change the world into its image and likeness. If liberal democracy has succeeded in America, it does not totally mean that liberal democracy will succeed in another part of the world. Because there are a lot of issues that the Americans don't face there, that we face in this part of the world.
Now, looking at the current government and the ruling system in Libya, do you think they have all it takes to restructure the country to what it's been known for?
They can only do that when they agree that they want to have a Libyan nation that is viable. Now there is no sign of that sort of agreement yet. They are all factions fighting over who will rule, not through democratic processes, but through the barrel of the gun.
All right, just like, is there any regime that is capable? For instance, now we may just want to say that these factions, just like we look at the NATO body, that's kind of, most people have already said, had a whole lot of hands in this. Do you think these factions might be as a result of, you know, sponsorship from different, some of these interest countries that may just want to have their stake in the country?
NATO came in, initially they said that it was to impose a no-fly zone in Libya, because Gaddafi was using his jets and all that to bomb the rebels. Then they said, oh, they want to impose a no-fly zone. When they adopted that, what did they do? They started bombing his military targets. They started bombing military targets, creating an enabling environment for the rebels to intervene and take power. So I'm sure they've also seen that such power sometimes runs counter to whatever your interest is in that part of the world.
Now, Gaddafi's son returned from exile not too long ago. Is currently in prison, and there have been a lot of, some people are saying he should be sentenced to death. But do you think he should be brought into the government? Of course, he ruled under his father. He handled some certain part of the government. Maybe he could be one of the fix.
The way Gaddafi ruled that country and the way people are annoyed or are not very happy with him, bringing up his in a country like that, he should, in fact, if they've not killed him or if they will not kill him, he should just leave that country and leave some other place. Because the people, and animosity for his father is still there in the hearts of a lot of people. So why does he want to rule in that country? Why does he want to work in that country? And then, you know, the way they do things. It's about death penalty and all that. So if I were to be in his shoes, I wouldn't even like to be anything in that country.
But don't you think it might still be a unifying factor?
Unifying factor? It could even be more divisive. So far as, you know, its relationship with other factions would be caustic enough not for them not to allow him to come. That even now that they've not killed him, that he's in their country, for me is surprising.
Now, what's the way forward? Can Libya ever get back to what it used to be?
It's only for Libyans for them to decide the way they want to go. Do they want Libya to be a totally Islamic state? Or do they want Libya to be factionalized in this way? There must be a common purpose and a common agreement for them to come together to decide on the path for Libya. It cannot be determined by external forces. It cannot be decided by external interest. It is Libyans themselves that would decide and draw a roadmap for their development and stabilization. That's what Libyans can do, not for any other person to decide for them.
All right, thank you very much. We really look forward to when Libya will go back to what it used to be, the old glamour in that part of the
not
the
what
continent.
It used to be, of what the people wants it to be.
Oh, of what the people want it to be. All right, thank you very much. Let's see how well Libya will go back to, or will be what the people want it to be. Just like the professor said, everyone has to come together and, of course, discuss, put their heads together. Maybe we should propose a national conference for Libya as well, you know, where interest group will come together and, of course, build the country and set up a constitution that will favor all the factions and, of course, work together as one unifying factor. That's our program for today. Thank you very much, Professor Charles Dokubo, for coming on the program.
For having me.
All right, I hope you're obliged to our call soon again.
I sure will.
All right. My name is BROWNSON on behalf of our production crew. So good to have you and have a wonderful day.